Is good, Counter-Strike fans? Welcome back to another episode of my HLTV Fantasy. Today, we're going to be talking about PGL Astana 2026 group stage. I know there's another fantasy going on as well, or at least those just recently released for IME Atlanta 2026. That'll be a separate video as well in the upcoming days. But today will be the focus on the group stage for PGL Astana. So that means this event is split up into two. Well, I believe IME Atlanta is just one event for the whole event. So this one will have group stage and playoffs. The other one will have just a singular event. But before we talk about PGL Astana, let's look at how we did in the previous event, which was, I believe, a blast event. And we got a top 15%, 12 points to the sprint season standings. It was fine. Went with double vitality, obviously the most obvious pick ever. They struggled throughout the whole event. They didn't look at their best. They were playing basically their C game, and they came out winning. Like you saw, for example, they dropped maps against, I believe, G2, Foot as well to some degree. Even in the finals, well, they went down to Navi like 11-1, I believe, and then they came back and beat them. So Vitality is probably the best team of all time. I think once they win the major later this year, and then the following second major as well, they'll be the greatest team of all time, in my opinion. You can't even there's no you can't negate the logic behind it. It's just that they've been that dominating, and I don't think anyone can beat them unless they pick up better players. I just don't see any team beating them in a playoff event, basically, because you saw this event as well. Like, they were not at the top of their game, and basically they won again in pretty easy fashion, honestly. But yeah, Apex and Romps, Double G2 and some Pyres and Hunter, who had a strong group stage and then fell apart in the playoffs against FaZe. So kind of disappointing, but some Pyres was strong, and then bid from Navi, which is fine. Probably not the best value for money, but it was okay. So top 15%, 12 points, just okay. Probably could have done a little bit better. The best value for money players were, for example, Wonderful, Saiwu, and Makaze. So very Navi Vitality heavy. Kind of picked the worst two from Vitality and Navi, but it is what it is. How we're doing for spring season standings: 530th in the world, 138 points overall. I'm about 43 points away from top 10, so still within reach. There's not many events left before the major, but we still have a lot of games. I'm gonna assume at least 7 games left, including the major fantasy games. So there's still a lot of time, and I just need to get those top 10, top 5, top 1%, and maybe I'm back in the running for any of these leaderboards. For our league, I'm 8-7 right now with 138. We have a new top number 1 in Sarks at 176. I don't believe he joined previously. He might be new, but he's now been the number 1. So remember, if you are interested, make sure to click the link in the description down below to join my league. If you finish first at the end of the spring season, you will receive a Steam gift card as well. As well as I will leave the description down below for a CS2 or HLTV Fantasy Discord as well, with a big community where everyone just discuss, fantasy picks. They watch the games as well. There's match chat as well. So very welcoming community as well. And I'll leave the description to that Discord down below as well. But yeah, enough about that. Let's talk about PGL Astana. So this group stage is like a Swiss style. Three wins and you're through to the playoffs. 3 losses and you're out of there. The teams are in here. So we have Aurora facing Heroic, G2 versus Fisher in the opening round, Mouse versus Genomates. Mongols versus, I believe, Magic. Falcons versus K27. Spirit versus the Huns. Furia versus Monte. And Prohibition versus 9C. Some things to note as well for these teams. Falcons, Karrigan's finally in. Kickston's out. I think I spoke about this in the last video. But we've even seen, like, for example, Twist giving interviews in the previous event, and I believe it's a clip of Frozen basically talking about how they didn't know that Karrigan was going to leave, and he basically just left without letting them know. So that's kind of disappointing from Karrigan to basically leave FaZe at a basically the worst period for them. Karrigan would join Falcons, and then also Mouse have made changes, and Brolin and Jim Hat are benched, and then JL and Selex from their academy will now be joining. JL gives them a little bit more aura. I think changes were needed for Mouse. Kind of disappointing, however, that they're gonna bench both Brolin and Jim Hat. And then I believe for the major they can only bench one. I think JL's gonna play like 2 events before the major, and then he's not gonna play the major. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah. So Mouse have made changes as well, with Searchin now being the end game leader. And other than that, it's just the rest is pretty stable as well. Just for a quick simulator, so let's just take the higher seed to win every round. In my opinion, looking at this, looking at the seeds that I picked, so these are the higher seeds. So, Paravision, will they go 3-0? I don't believe they will go 3-0. I do think they qualify, but I do see it more of a 3-2 fashion. I think teams have figured out Paravision a little bit more. They're not as strong as they were in the beginning of the year, but they should still have enough to qualify. Yeah, Furia as well. I don't see them going 3-0. I just picked the higher seeds, like you saw. Maybe 3-2, 3-1 fashion as well. They've been quite poor ever since Fallen has basically, well, ever since IME Rio, where Fallen announced his retirement at the end of the year. So yeah, don't see Furia 3-0. Teams I do see being in a 3-0 fashion, I see Aurora, Falcons, Mongols, and Spirit being the 4 contenders for that. I think these teams are the strongest here currently. They have the least like worries. For example, like Aurora and Mongols are pretty consistent and should make the playoffs easily. Falcons and Spirit have the highest upside, but there's still kinks to work out. For example, Magic's in-game leading, Karrigan being a new leader in Falcons, how that changes as well. And Mouse could be a contender to not qualify alongside like Furia as well. Like from here, I don't think I see him 3-1. Probably like a 3-2 for Mouse, just because we don't know exactly how Surgeon as an in-game leader will work and how JL and Selex will integrate into the team. G2, I could see G2 being more like a 3-1, for example. I think G2 looks strong in the group stage in the previous event, and they look strong in general. It's just that when it comes to the playoffs, it just kind of crumble. When there's no pressure on them, they do well. When there is pressure, they kind of struggle. Who could be the upsets from the lower seeds? I think Heroic is interesting, and Monty, Genomates, and 9C. I think those 4 are teams to look out for. Do I see any of them actually beating someone like Mouse or someone like G2 or an Aurora or Furia? Probably not to qualify for playoffs. Maybe like a single matchup here they might, but when it comes to it, I think the higher seeds are that just a bit better than them. If I had to pick one of these, I think it's Monty or Heroic, to be honest. One of these 2 can make it. And then here, teams I don't see making it, maybe Mouse, maybe Furia, or maybe Paravision, honestly. for this side. But that's just some quick thoughts on that. But yeah, just make sure to pick teams that make it to the playoffs and don't pick teams that don't make it to the playoffs. Easy peasy. Now we can talk about the most picked players. Currently, Karrigan is getting picked over half, like 50% the time from Falcons, alongside with Mondesi as well. From G2, we have some Pius and Hunter, Tenier and Sontix from Spirit, and then Torshi and JL from Mao. So pretty evenly spread. There's no clear team to go for, and it makes sense because this is a group stage. Anything can happen, and most of these teams aren't stable enough. Someone like, for example, like Navi would be a stable team. Like Food, Vitality, we've seen that they perform in these type of stages. Meanwhile, some of these teams have some question marks around them. But now we can talk about the players individually. We'll start off with Furia. Here's the quick and simple answer for Furia players. Don't pick them. They're too expensive, and they have been performing poorly for 2 events now. Yeah, if you had to go with one, maybe Casarado or Jakindar. But again, there's probably better value in other teams, and I don't know. There could be an upset here, and maybe Furia don't make it to the next stage. I just have not liked what I've seen from them recently, especially with Molozoy falling off. Basically, like he's just been not the same Molozoy, not the same top. I think 7. He was top 7 in the world last year, and I thought, for example, that was a little bit too high in my opinion. I know he looked good and he was rookie of the year, but if you watch the games, he definitely came in clutch in big moments, but you saw him like crumble in finals. Like his overall rating didn't match the eye test. So yeah, I'm just saying maybe he's going back to the mean. Maybe he's going back to the standard that he maybe came in a little bit too high and now he's cooling down a lot more. So yeah, that's Furia. Don't pick any of them in my opinion. For Aurora, I think your best pick has to be Wakadia at 217. He's kind of been Aurora's best player over the last 3 months with a 1.13 rating. So if you want to pick into Aurora, pick into Wakadia. I don't mind Centaurus either a little bit more because of a higher upside, but Wakadia has shown to be just as good. Would ignore players like Major and Soulfly. I think just too expensive for what they offer. Woxic again, I would avoid just because you can get Wakadia and Centaurus a little bit more for like 2k and 4k more respectively, and they're just a little bit more consistent. Falcons, this is the interesting one. I think Mondesi to 35 is great value. He might be the best value currently just because of how good he's been over the last 3 months. He has a 1.31 rating over the last 3 months. Over the last month, he has a 1.48. So he's coming into form. It's going to be interesting to see the way that Karrigan sets them up. I think the Karrigan kicks and change kind of helps for some role clarity. So Karrigans will now take all the worst positions in every map. For example, in Mirage, he'll take B anchor, and Tessus can be a little bit more freed, and he could be like the A anchor, for example. So yeah, things like that maybe might help role clarity for this team. And Karrigan might be he is a better caller than Kicksense. So they lose on firepower, but they gain in better strats. If there is any currently with Karrigan, I think he just kind of like throws, at the wall and then hopes for the best. But yeah, Mondesi's probably the best value here. After that, I think like players like Tessus and Nico, I would consider, especially if Falcons are to be one of the teams to go 3-0. I would ignore Karrigan at this point. I just don't trust his individual skill to match. He's super cheap, so I don't mind him, but I personally can't pick Karrigan. And then Kyusuke, he's been poor for a little while. 0.98 over the last month, 1.1 over the last 3 months, so not worth the price right now, but he could maybe be unlocked by Karrigan. But yeah, looking to Monosine, Tessus, and Nico in my opinion. For Spirit, the best value for money currently is actually Dunk still at 245. It is not as good as value as you might initially think. I just think he's a little bit too priced for his output currently. For a little bit cheaper, you can look at players like Tenier. I think is the best of the rest. Shiro's too expensive at 222 for his recent output, and then Magic and Sontics just don't do that well for that price. Paravision, again, I think Paravision, if you're picking into them, you have to look into Sway or Jame, with Sway being my much preferred option. Belchanak, Cello, and Nota haven't been great. They're still too young and too inexperienced, and as has shown now with the most recent performance has been very poor. All three have been below a 1 rating for the last 3 months. So yeah, if you're picking Paravision, Sway, and Jame are your options. For Mongols, I think the pricing is a little bit more better for here. Um, in my opinion, I would go with Corvacera as my favorite option at 210. He's the cheapest of the three better players of Mongols, and he's been putting up some better ratings. I mean, over the last 3 months, 1.05 rating. In the last month, 1.15, which is second highest to 910 at 220. A little bit expensive for my liking, but probably my second best option. And then after that, you have to pick into like Messinho or Techno or even Blitz, who are still a little bit too overpriced. For Mouse, here is where I think where we get a little bit more value for our money. So I think JL 204 is pretty good value. Again, he hasn't played a match with Mouse, but he's played with Liquid, for example, and he did solid enough there. He put up a 1.11 rating with them. So a 204 is pretty good value compared to what the rest of the field looks like, because there's very high player value players and the budget can't really afford all of them. So JL's decent there. After that, Celix was good for Mouse and XT, but remember that that's a developmental team. They don't play any top 50 teams, so 205 is still too expensive for him. I think Torshi at 192, while he's been very poor, and I mean very poor over the last 3 months, under a 1 rating, a 0.97. I just want to take a chance on him at 192. I think he's just really cheap, and he's an opera, and hopefully, the update kind of helps him play better. Sershin is probably the second best value at 205 behind JL, but he's going to go into IGL role, so that makes me a little bit wary of picking into him, and the IGL maybe causing him some hindrance in his rating. And then Spinks is fine at 211, still a little bit too expensive for my liking, but he's probably the most consistent Mouse player. And then G2, here's again where more values at. My favorite has to be some Pius at 196. He's been good. You saw him in the last event. He put up a 1.12 rating. So he's showing better performances. He mentioned that the update didn't make him up better, but it may actually make him rifle a little bit better. So maybe that's where oppers get a little bit more rating. It's not from just opping, but rifling, where they don't have to basically hold an angle and then gets wide swung by these players, and they can do a little bit more with the rifle. After that, players like some Heavy God is pretty good value at 209. Probably the second best value for money. And then Matty S and Nerds are up there. I would lean with Matty S for the higher upside. Hunter's not bad at 181, however. And then once you get past G2, you get into more like punt territory. For example, 9C. If you want to go here, you kind of have to go cheap. You don't want to go for the 200,000 players. If you do go with one of them, maybe go TGT for a little bit more name recognition. Myron's not bad at 190. Max is whatever at 184. For Monty, again, you want to go with the cheaper players. Maybe go with one of these two bronze players. Or Bimas, who's has some name recognition. Don't pick it to the 200,000 players. Heroic, I know a little bit more about. Here, I know Nilo's been really good for them, so 206, I don't mind to take the punt there. Otherwise, I would just pick into like Susp for a little bit more, or Chrism at 185, who can be a good IGL, rifling IGL. Gentlemates, yeah, I don't see them making it, but I mean, Alex or David G could be interesting at those prices. But yeah, again, like I mentioned, these are all punts. And after that, like Magic, Fisher College, K27, the Huns, I would not go there. Huns are interesting, however. I think I didn't even see how cheap these guys are. But controllers, remember how he did well with Mongols? 170 is not bad. But again, you're taking a punt, and they're probably not making it past the first stage. They probably could go like 2 and 3, realistically, or 1 and 3. But you, which could be okay actually, value wise. So I actually don't mind something like the Huns, there, but yeah, it's not great. Other than after G2, and like you're basically just punting on players. But for my team, this is what I'm gonna go with. I'm just gonna go value. And I see value in the uppers for both G2 and Mouse. I think they're cheap, and I'm hoping for a better performance from Torshi. I'm hoping Sampayas keeps it up as well. I'm also going with the kind of starish player from G2 and Mouse with Matty S and JL. This combination from JL and Torshi is pretty popular, but I don't mind it. I mean, Yosai, they're pretty popular. Sampayas is also pretty popular as well. He's kind of almost a must-have in my opinion. I think he's so cheap and such a good value for money that you kind of had to have him. But yeah, going Matty S and JL, and then finishing off with Tesis. I don't see me going with anything else, honestly. Everyone's so expensive in my opinion that you're trying to find your value here and there. And I think players like G2 and Mouse have the most value in my opinion. And just hoping to that they put up a good performance. I mean, G2 probably had the most lopsided matchup with Fisher College, but it is what it is. Tessis could possibly go to like a Magix, but I don't see it there. Yeah, there's not really anyone. Or if I want to take a punt, maybe like someone down here, but probably not. But yeah, I think that'll be my team for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Leave your teams down there. But yeah, I think this event's gonna be interesting to see. I remember it's just group stage, so I'm just gonna go with cheap players from teams that I think should make it to the playoffs at least. But yeah, good luck, have fun, and see you for the next time.